Hello and welcome to the Board Game BBQ, episode 285, brought to you by Advent Games and our Patreons. You've got Conor in the host seat tonight. I'm very excited to chat to a couple of my Victorian buddies. And long time no see, lads. How good?
It's been a week?
A week. Yeah, I was going to say a week. So that was good seeing you. How are you going, Joe?
Yeah, doing well, thanks.
Doing well. It is Oceania Week, and we do have one of my favourite guests. I would like to welcome back, fresh from episode 179, where we first talked to a man who designed one of our favourite flip and writes, and in my opinion, one of the best solo games ever made, Hadrian's Wall, none other than Bobby Hill. How are you going, Bobby?
Thank you for the introduction. I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me back on.
Yeah, we're stoked to have you back. Like I said in the little intro, Hadrian's Wall, it was so good and so universally loved across all of our podcast hosts. How have you found the response post-release, sort of since we talked to you last?
Yeah, no, it's been amazing. It's been a lot more. I mean, I just wanted, first game, I just wanted to get a game on the shelves and people into people's kind of laps, and the response has been kind of, I would say, overwhelming, but it's gone gangbusters, much better than I could ever imagine. The solo community gave me a lot of love, and so Shem was like, you should probably do a campaign, and so I wrote a campaign specifically for like solo play. And then in the second release, it's like a semi-second edition of the game. We've changed. Shem's changed some colours of the of some of the meeples for better accessibility. But we put the campaign into the rule book now as well, which is good. So it's been amazing, and it's pretty good.
I didn't know that. I'll have to get the second. I've got the OG copy. I might have to get a second copy just so I can feel like I've got the. Can I ask as well, because it's now on BGA, Board Game Arena, and it's a really clean, really clean version of it. How much involvement do you have in getting that there, or helping them sort of?
Not a great deal, to be honest. No, not a great deal. The people that actually made it obviously went through Shem and said, actually, I could be getting it wrong. I think Shem might have even actually commissioned it himself, but certainly that I was asked to go through it just to make sure that everything was working correctly. So I had a little bit of involvement just to QA testing it, but the people that actually made it did a good job of it, really good job, and it manages obviously, the whole meeple kind of like management.
It is so good.
Yeah, which is good. Next stage is a iOS and Android app, I think.
Wow, bring it!
Wow. No, I mean I wouldn't, but I think it just it's one of those things that probably would be crying out for that. Yeah,
like when's it coming? When's it?
Yeah. Checking the App Store now.
No, very good. I guess I am not very good at the game, like hands down, not very good. What's sort of been, have you had anyone come back and say, oh, I got to this score, I used this strategy and I found that was really successful? Was there anything that people contact you about in terms of strategies that you weren't expecting?
There's, right at the very beginning I saw like people one of the ones was just sacrificing gladiators to get an extra bit of piety, which I was like, oh, thematically that's pretty rotten, but it kind of makes sense. So I never really thought about that from a mechanic. I mean, I'm a killer for actually probably sometimes relying too heavily on theme than the mechanics. So, but I check BGG obviously all the time, respond to people, ask questions, and there was some fella that only recently said that I think he's got max score and like did a whole how he did it, and so I'm like, well, he's much better at playing the game than I am. So
can't relate.
So that's great. I mean, after a while, I guess it's the same. I'm into movies as well. That you put a piece of art out there and it stops almost becoming yours at that point, and then then the people that are absorbing it start taking it on as their own, which is again for me it's just amazing to see. So it's great.
I guess coming up for you now, and when did you sort of first tease the upcoming game, the Anarchy?
Yeah, so tease. I think Shen put it out. He did like I think like a state of the address or whatever it's called. It's something like that. About what's
State
coming
of the
up.
Union.
State of Union. That's it. I think that's it. Yeah. So about what's coming up for with Sam. What's coming up for Garfield over the next 12 to 18 months and beyond. And it's part of that. So that was, I think, it was either the start of the year or just before the year broke in. So yeah, but we've been working. I came up with the concept of it really back in July 21. I think, well, if I can make a game out of walls, could I make a game out of making castles? So it really and then it was just a lot of research, a lot of reading, and it's really progressed from that. Yeah.
So you actually just mentioned research and reading, and before we sort of started talking, you showed the book that you're reading at the moment for historical settings. So we probably touched on this last time we spoke, but for those who haven't listened to the episode, how much research do you put into making sure that you hit the theme and the setting, the nail on the head?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the biggest compliments I got about Hadrian's War was a history teacher coming up to me and saying that that it was quite obvious that I've done the research and he poured certain points out and that was great for me. That was fantastic. For me, it's really important. I mean, I'm not saying that you should learn something while you play a game. No one's, I wouldn't say that, but certainly for me, and again with Anarchy, the mechanics were born out of the theme. And I think that if you're true to the theme, then I don't know. For me, I'm not a big fan of chess. I'm not a big fan of abstract games. I want to know, because I think I spoke to you when I spoke to you a couple of years ago. That like I'd say that I'm a kind of almost role player first. I've been role playing since I was 11. So, and when you talk about, I don't know if do any of you role play?
Joe role plays a whole lot,
quite a bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you talk about good games, the great games you've had over the last, 20, 30 years you've been playing, you don't talk, like, and then I rolled a 20 and then I rolled 2d6 plus 5. What you talk about these experiences and these, like, things, these adventures you've had as a group in your head. And board games can do that as well. And, it's not a question of I moved my meeple to this space. It's like, and then I was blocked, then I was trying to do this, and you talk about it within the theme of the game. And that to me is when you start making memorable experiences when you play the game. So, I mean, it's always been born out of that. So I don't know if I'm going off topic a bit, but it's, for me, that's important. So I always, yeah, and as I said, I'm turning to my dad a little bit as well. So, I'm getting actually quite excited about, like when I want to learn a bit about history, I'm like, this is amazing. So, theme's really important. So, research is important. You want to get it right.
Well, I must admit, I fell down a YouTube rabbit hole today, learning all about the Anarchy.
Yeah, it's good
and
stuff,
all
isn't it?
The various sites. It's fascinating. But for those people that aren't aware and don't have time, we've got the pseudo expert on the show now. What can you tell us? Well, what can you? I don't know. What do we start with? Do we start with the game or do we start with the historical period itself?
You can start with the historical period.
So what can you tell us about the Anarchy?
So it's 1135. And Henry I has died. Apparently, he was a bit too fond of lamprey, the eels, and his physician told him to back off, but he didn't, and he ended up dying. And it kind of left a power vacuum in England and Normandy because they're kind of almost paired at that point. He had one living heir, but she was female, and that was Matilda, and she was married to this other dude called Geoffrey of Anjou, and they apparently didn't get on, him and Henry, and she was in Normandy as well when he died. Apparently, on his deathbed, he said, "Do you know what? I won't make her the heir. I'll make my favourite nephew, Stephen, the heir to the throne instead. So Stephen managed to make his way from Normandy or France, where I think he was in Normandy at the time, across the English Channel, managed to wangle in his brother was the bishop at the time, which helps, and then he got crowned king. And so he was apparently a very amiable and likable fella, so it wasn't too much of an issue to get in, but obviously that caused ructions with Matilda and some of her half brother who got involved in it, and he was over in England at the time. And so what happened is that over the next 18 years there was a period of civil war where people loyal to Stephen the Royalists and those people loyal to Matilda the Angevin end up having a massive stoosh. And so that was it. Was just as they said, it wasn't. I don't think it was called the Anarchy at the time, but it was referred to historically from that point as the Anarchy because it really was a lot of backwards and forwards. And so that's the period. Yeah.
The YouTube video I watched, and probably should shout out to the Salty Historian. That was the channel I watched it on, and as it told the story, it all in cartoons and stuff, so it made it easy for me to understand. but it had the map of England and Normandy, and at various points territories were being won and lost, and then the Welsh got involved and Scots got involved, and they got pushed back again. And
it was a bit.
I think I understand now why they called it the Anarchy, because it was absolute chaos for that extended period of time.
Well, the thing that I thought was quite amusing is that someone's dubbed it the Anarchy when it didn't seem all that more or less anarchic than all the other civil wars that had happened up until that point. So it makes a great name for a board game.
It does, yeah. I think there was a few other anarchies, and Shen was and back, and we had like the Royalists of the Anarchy. But in the end, I think once Sam's artwork, the front cover came out, it was like, no, that's pretty good. We'll keep that. So, yeah.
It definitely draws the eye, like the artwork. So is that what you're going with? That artwork that's sort of out there that's going to be on the box?
Yeah. So that's the I can. I don't know. It's not very good podcasting, but I could show you the box. But it's really it's what's on BGG at the moment. That's the box cover.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah.
So I guess the question is, how does this link to the game mechanics then? So what are you going to be doing? Flip and right? Is it roll and right? So yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely a step up from Hadrian's Wall, which I don't know is either going to fill people with dread or get people excited. It really was the fact that, the idea really was, okay, could I do something similar, but think about progressing or moving the genre of, I've been calling it Euro, right? I don't know if it's a bit, if I can swear on it, a bit wanky in the thing, but it meant I couldn't really, it's not really a flip and right, because you do flip some stuff, but you get stuff, and then it's, and it does feel a bit Euro-y. So, but it's a question of, can I progress that mechanic? And so if I was going to build a castle, it really got brought out of the mechanic that when you start filling in boxes, it's very difficult to rub them out again. So if I was building a castle, the castle would have to stay relatively intact. So at some point, castles stopped becoming like fortresses when like gunpowder and everything else, and that they could blow walls down. So I was like, well, I can't go that far into, so I'm going to have to come back to where it, and that's where I found the Anarchy and started doing the research on that. The mechanic wise, it's kind of similar in the way that you get like meeples, you get resources at the start of the round, and then you have to spend them. But what's different about the game is that it's proactive as well as reactive. Whereas where the Romans were building wall, you were building a wall, waiting for the Picts to attack. This is about building your defenses, and that doesn't mean only building like up the castle, but also building like tactics. So, like for instance, hot oil, building, like having rocks, for if people like escalate up the wall and things. So you're building, and what's happening, instead of the Picts just randomly attacking you, what you can do is thematically you can see what siege equipment the particular troops are rolling up towards your castle. And so what you can do, there is an element of being able to prepare either by building up your castle defenses, by making tactics like building covers and stuff, and actually manning the walls with soldiers and knights, and if you're really stuck, some blacksmiths as well. But the other thing is, what you've got to do is you've got to attack castles as well. So you are then building your own siege weapons, and then you're actually manning those siege weapons as well. And then you've got knights and soldiers that are doing that. You're also having to build stables to get those out to castles that are further out as the rounds progress, and then you have to feed them as well. And so, in some of the similarities with Hadrian's Wall, Anarchy has almost like a business sheet, and then in like your domain sheet, as opposed to but with the difference between, I suppose, Anarchy and Hadrian's Wall is that the right sheet is it's not about how can I score more points. Everything you're doing on that is assisting you in either attacking or defending. So everything is more linked together, and it's I describe it as a lot more sweaty, because you're like, and what you find is you go, yay, I'm taking on these castles and I'm earning all these experience points, but I've just realised I haven't got enough food to feed not only my standing army, and then I'm not, and getting. There was the idea. This discontent is the negative in this, and it's a lot easier to get discontent in this game. Because the fact is, you can get discontent from not feeding your troops. There's a whole campaign where you get different things that you just get discontent from not doing certain things as well. And obviously, letting attacks through is going to cause discontent as well. But yeah, it's there's a lot more going on. There's a lot more going, and it's proactive. And it's more variable as well. It's I think one of the things I've tried to do is that there is a certain limitation when you use sheets, because they don't change. But with this, what we've tried to do is we've added more components where the change is external to those sheets, so it feels like different. What I've done this time is that I've done the campaign from scratch. So out of the box, there's a 20 scenario campaign that covers the first 13 years of the Anarchy historically. And so there's actually, I don't know, have any of you played Legacy of You?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's that idea of new components coming in every time. So the thing is, and again, it's thematic. It's historical. I tried very hard to make sure that everything is sequenced. The dates are correct. That the reasons why you're doing this is because of this particular event that has occurred as well. So yeah, so it's there's a lot more going on. I mean, just from the very basics, there's like 8 resources you need to manage now instead of 5. So there's a bit going on.
Awesome. Hearing about having to feed your soldiers, I'm sure Uwe Rosenberg would be absolutely thrilled.
Yeah. They don't die; they just get really pissed off.
From my understanding, with the multiplayer game, everyone's playing as nobles loyal to King Stephen. Is that right?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
And so, is there much? In Hadrian's Wall, there's not that much interactivity between other players. But in the Anarchy, is there much more interaction, or is it about the same?
There's a little bit more interaction. When I started the game, I tried to make it do it more like against each other. So like one side would play the Royalists, one side would play the Angevin, and it sucked. It wasn't fun. I don't think you realise that. Hang on, if I don't enjoy playing these type of games, why am I trying to make one?
Yeah.
So it really boiled down to, actually, no, this is the kind of game I can make it, and so there's a bit more interaction, but no, it's not like hugely. Again, there is an element of heads down working, weirdly enough, like where the picks would attack, and they would attack everyone in the same way, whereas now every castle, every player gets their own run of enemies attacking in different ways.
Yeah, it's cool.
So everyone's having to manage their own problem, but there is a central board where all the castles that you're attacking are happening, and your tents are moving along. And also what they do is they actually give you the strength of the attacks as well. So your attack cards, they're different attack cards, but they have like a letter reference, and then the cards in the middle are what changes. So as they get, as maybe like you go from light to medium to hard, the numbers will increase on the cards, so you know that the attacks will be slightly different. But what happens is that if you don't keep up with attacking the castles with everyone else, it means you get last dibs for the resources at the start of the game. So you could be heads down and working on stuff, and you look up and then you see like all the you're like moving in front of you, which does cause problems. It means that you're limited to the resources and the bonus cards that you're going to try to score the following round. And also, if you can't attack the castles, that's another way of getting discontent, because the fact is people are not happy with the fact that you're not fighting, on behalf of Stephen. So
letting him waltz on through.
Exactly. And also the fact is that there's a problem where you say, I'm not spending all the resources to attack this castle this round, you'll take the hit, but next round your horse is all the way back on your men, so you have to provide more men to actually push forward. So there's there's a bit of if you get stuck behind, it's a little bit further to catch up.
So it sounds like you do need to pay attention to what other people are doing in the game.
But it's still your board, and you're managing your board.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm interested the kind of feedback you've gotten from playtesters, if it's at that stage yet.
Yeah.
So you said the way that I kind of explained how Hadrian's Wall works to other people is I said, you focus on your left-hand side first and do what you need to do on the left-hand side, and then you've got those resources that you can then spend on the right-hand side to sort of accelerate and get more points. I felt that was a really good way. Like you said, it is a Euro right. It's heavy. There's a lot going on, and I have a propensity to miss things or not spend something where I'm supposed to. So have you had more people sort of comment on that happening more often, because are you going back and forwards between the two pages a little bit more?
Yeah, you are. So, again, not good podcasting, but I can show you the sheet. So
we can just pause the podcast and you can show us everything.
Oh, right, yeah. I can do that, but maybe I don't do that. Maybe I just talk to it, and I can show you later.
No. We want to see.
Show us.
Okay. So, so the left-hand sheet is this. So the fact is, have you paused it, or you're not paused it?
No, I haven't paused it.
Okay, all right then. So apologies to anyone that's listening. But the thing is that this is really this here is how you build the castles up. But you've got your own castle, a physical castle that you're building.
Cool.
So it's not just a question of you've got walls that are building, you've got turrets, you've got the gatehouse, and you've got the moat that you're actually physically building. So just not only just marking off these boxes, you can actually see your castle growing, which is pretty cool. Then you've got you can spend your serfs in different ways. So they can either work in the fields for food, they can actually in the training grounds to become soldiers, or they can actually work in the quarries and the forest to actually get you materials to build stuff with. And then you've got this idea of this. It's kind of like a wealth wheel, actually. So it's like you start from the middle and you work your way out, but there's different quadrants. So you can go to the mercenary, so you can down the pub and get extra. And that was one of the things that Stephen used to do when he went over to he went over to Normandy and got loads of, I think it's Flemish. Anyway, he got a load of people to give him a hand. But you've got allies as well that you can spend money on to actually come and help you. You've got you can go out to craftsmen, because craftsmen were free men at that time, and they worked. And they kind of had carte blanche to actually move between domains. They weren't serfs, and they were skilled workers, but you have to pay them to do the work. And then you've got the idea of actually employing and actually working out, how do I build ladders? How do I build ballistas? How do I build catapults? And then when you start building bigger parts of your castle, or you start building your keep and bigger parts of your chapel, then you're going to need your small crane and your small winches and pulleys, and then your large crane and winches and pulleys. And again, you have to build that to be able to build bigger things. Okay, so that's the build sheet. Yeah. There's also the tactics on here as well, but this is the build sheet. But then on here, on the second sheet, this is, as I said, if you played Hadrian's Wall, the layout, again, I fought against the layout and then realized that the reason why I did that in the first place is just because it was the best layout. So why am I fighting against it? So the layout is kind of the same, as in you've got these like leadership lines running down, but these are controlled by noble and clergy. Okay, so you've got the 4 different areas as opposed to 5, but there's a lot more going on in each one. So you've got governance, you've got warcraft, you've got worship, and you've got entertainment, but they all do something different. And so like if you build a small keep, that will give you influence and actually gain you like knights that will come in and help you. And if you think knights are like uber soldiers, okay, they'll be able to take 2 hits instead of 1 when they're actually protecting things and actually doing damage as well. You've got the mint, which makes money. And money is important because it allows you to get all those other goods as well. And you've got spies. And the reason why you want spies is because after a while, you can see the siege engine rolling up to your castle, but you don't know where they're attacking. So some of the cards are actually flipped over. So some of them you can see, and some of them you won't be able to see. And so the spies will allow you to go in there and actually flip the cards over, and so you can actually see what's going on. And also what you can do is that you can gain extra bravery by using your spies and helping your neighbors out as well. So, but then you've got the warcraft, so you can do tactics where you can actually basically put resources into like creating those like oil and those rocks to actually, temporarily take people down. You've got ramparts that allow you to move soldiers from one quadrant in your castle to another as you're attacking. You've got stables that allow your troops to go out. Worship allows you to build a chapel, and that allows you to get more nobles and clergy, but it also allows you to train knights up. So you train knights up, and training knights is good because they're stronger. And then you've got the St. Valentine's Day festival that allows you to get more serfs because, you put on a festival, you get them dancing around the maypole, they produce babies, and you get more serfs, that kind of thing. So,
right. Good times.
So even during the Anarchy, they still had time for festivals.
They did, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, back in the day, they worked like all the time, but I think it was supplemented by the fact they had a lot of holidays, a lot of saints. But sorry, so I don't know if I went into too much detail, but what I'm trying to say there is that you can't, with this game so much, you cannot disregard the right hand side because you're going to need to use it to actually they work in synchronicity more than Hadrian's Wall did. You're going to have to go back and forth. So again, there is teaching it is a bit of a long lead, but again, hopefully, as Hadrian's Wall, because it thematically makes sense. He says, fingers crossed. The thing is that hopefully, what it will do, it will make sense, and then from that, it should be fairly straightforward. But it's got a bit of a long lead for a teach.
Well, even just the fact that you've kept a similar style of the layout, not the layout the same, but a similar style, and we've still got Sam Phillips's artwork. I can see even the color schemes are the same. It just looks like comfort food to me, and I think that will lower the entry barrier to anyone who's already loved Hadrian's Wall. If you're worried that this is a step up, because I noticed on BGG it's ranked as a 4.0 weighting out of 5, but I don't know how much sort of merit we put into that, but just that looks familiar to everyone, I think is going to make it a lot more approachable.
It does. The only thing is there's a lot more on the table. So there's obviously you've got your castle. Every player's got a castle. There's the center board as well. So there's more stuff going on around this.
I was going to say we need to talk more about this castle mechanic.
Is it a 3D castle? Like it's
Again, as I said, not good podcast because I'm testing the scenario. I'm testing the campaign. Give me a minute. Apologies, people listening.
So what we just saw was the game pretty much and the sheets, and I can tell you, and Dan's eyes went to the side of dinner plates. It's unreal. It's so cool. Yeah.
So great.
Bobby's just going to grab.
You can talk as much as you like about this game. So this is the castle. This is the castle plate, and then what you do is that you put the the walls on, so the walls are like that. So that's one, and then it will flick up and turn, and it will get stronger and stronger. And then you've got the turrets there. Yep. Again, you can flick them over, and they get stronger, and they protect the different quadrants. And the castle's divided into 4 quadrants, and they will attack in different ways.
Sick.
Interesting.
And then you've got the gatehouse there, and then you've got the moat here as well.
And so it's a cardboard square. That's the base of the castle, with the foundation, I assume. And then, so the actual castle pieces themselves, what? They're
going to be medium? Plastic, I believe. They're
plastic. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. I think Shen was going to go that way.
Because one thing that struck me and actually lowered the complexity for Hadrian's Wall, and we've probably talked about this before as well, is the fact that you do have an actual physical item, whether it's the bricks, whether it's the workers, to spend. So it's like, I've still got this sitting here, I can spend it. I've still got to go back and do that. I've played quite a few, as Dan has, and I'm sure Joe has, quite a few roll and write, flip and writes. And you do end up a lot of the time going, have I spent that already, or what have I done there?
Yeah, that is exactly what it was born out of. My memory is shocking. The only and I played a few games where I was like, I got stuck like that, and I was like, if I was going to make something like that, I would have a physical component where I can manage, and it would be impossible with that game, with both games. But starting with Hadrian's Wall, it would be impossible just because there's so much content to be able to move around. Yeah.
But there's also that great feeling of, I'm going to spend this, and then I get to take something back. So a lot of the time, it's a civilian. I spend a civilian, and then I go and get a builder or a soldier or a servant. Like that, for me, that added to it so much, like for the ease of play, but also just when you have all your stuff at the start of the turn, you're like, are we sure that I get all this? Like, I have so much stuff I get to play with, but within like
you've burned through it so fast.
Yeah. It's like, and then everyone else is really thinking their process out.
And then you just sit there questioning your decisions, going, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have picked that.
Yeah, it's bad. Have you anyone played White Castle?
Yeah.
That's for me. That's like the pinnacle of if I do one thing this turn, it's a rubbish turn. You feel like I need to do at least 2, maybe 3, as many as I can. It's a beautiful game. There's no fat on that game. It's fantastic. Yeah.
So I had it taught to me by our friend Harry. Yeah, it's really, really good. Oh man, I adore that game so much, and I can't wait to play again. But if that's kind of what you're basing, if that's what you're trying to hear,
when I played it, I was just like, it was one of those times where we played it, and we only played 2 players, and it was like, I think we played it in 20-25 minutes, and we were like, we need to play that again, and we like set it back up and played it again because we're like, I know we've not played that as well as we could, and both of us were like went back into it. It's such a good game. But again, it's those little endorphin rushes, isn't it? It's the fact that I do this, I get this, and I do this, and I get that. And you want to extend your turn out and be clever. It
does, yeah.
I think I was really impressed with Hadrian's as well, is to bring it back to what you were talking about at the very start, is that there was these moments where you're playing the game, you're doing the mechanics, you're doing the combos, getting the rush of the combos, but then you'd be struck by this moment of, I'm using this worker to do this, and you have that little, like that good feeling of, this is really thematic. I'm using this worker to do this, which will then do this, which just has that really nice thematic tie-in. And like you were saying, it gives a narrative element to a game that isn't a narrative game, but brings it back to creating this emergent story from the game as well.
Yeah, Jared of 3 Minute Board Games, I think you might know him. He's got a really good thing about that. There's a difference between theme and immersiveness. The thing is that a game can be super thematic, but not immersive. I mean, I wouldn't say Hadrian's Wall is like immersive. You don't actually feel like a Roman commander standing on a wall, But the theme is, I want the theme to be there. I mean, it's not, as I said, it's not like Nemesis where you actually feel like you're on the Nostromo running away from what I mean? So get sweaty, but it's. I think theme's a big one.
And just, you mentioned at the start that you were you'd had some really good feedback on BGG. I noticed that you are quite active on BGG, and there's already some commentary and some forum questions about the Anarchy. And I'm going to steal one of the questions because I really enjoyed your response. Someone actually asked on BGG that why you decided to have the players being the nobles or the barons who supported Stephen as opposed to having those who supported Matilda, because it did go on for so long. And your response alludes to the fact that there may be campaign expansion coming as well. Are you able to share any of that?
Yeah. So, after there's a bit of toing and throwing, including like actually Stephen getting captured at one point, but so did I think his name was old Robert of Gloucester, who was Matilda's half brother. So we ended up doing a prisoner swap at some point. But the fact is, at a certain point, Earl Robert died, which was her biggest ally, and then she went back to Normandy and she never returned to England. But so there was a very good kind of like story there, a very good arc of like success, from the player's point of view. If you're playing the royalist, that's that was that you've achieved something. However, I don't know, I say it's a spoiler. I mean, it was ancient history now. But the thing is that what happened was that Henry II, which is Matilda's one of Matilda's sons, came across then, and he had come across I think a couple of times beforehand, but when he came across the third time, he was of an age. I think they grew up pretty quickly in those days, and I think he was about 17, and he actually then for the next 5 years actually kicked off the kind of like the struggles again, and to the point, I think in the end, it was the clergy that turned around and said, "You've got to stop this. You've got to come up with some solution because like the country's like on its knees." And so that's when what happened was that Stephen adopted Henry and said, "I'm going to remain king, but when I die, then you can become king." And so that kind of that Norman line continued, kind of did a bit of a deviation from Stephen, but it kind of came back on Henry II. Funnily enough, Stephen didn't live for very long after that. I don't know why that would be the case, but Henry II then became the next king. So the thing is that the idea is that in the box, the campaign, it covers the first 13 years, and it's a good solid chapters, and you get that arc. But when the mini campaign, I do want to tell that story, is the fact that when Henry came over, and you'll be playing it from Henry's point of view of actually kind of like kicking it off again, and then finally getting the win, so to speak. Yeah, and also what I didn't realize is how people are so passionate about Matilda. Maud, and like I did see one person say, "Well, I'm not playing this game. If I have to support Stephen, I'm not playing this game." I was like, "Really? That's what you're going to die on?"
Well,
okay, right, fair enough. Yeah, that's hard.
If I had to play a game where I played as the team on Dan's hat, the Richmond Tigers, I probably wouldn't play that game either. So, like,
but it's not like there's been it's been a while. So it's
there's a fair chunk of water under that bridge.
Yeah. But hopefully that this mini campaign will hopefully quell any of those problems. So.
Yeah, cool. So I guess one of the things that Garfield Games is known for is their love of trilogies. So I guess you've got Hadrian's Wall, you've got the Anarchy. Without putting in too much pressure on you or letting us know something that you shouldn't, may there be a third one coming as well?
If there was a good enough story, I don't want to repeat myself.
Sure.
I don't want to repeat myself. I mean, hopefully that when you start playing this, you'll realise I haven't just made Hadrian's Wall 2. It should feel
the difficult
like,
second album.
Yeah, sophomore, and I wouldn't want people to go, well, it feels like it's the same game, and I wouldn't want it to feel. I wouldn't want to do that. So, if I did something, it would have to be, there'd have to be a very good reason. There'd have to be a very good. Yeah, I mean, I've got some ideas of where I could take this mechanic, but I also don't want to be a one-trick pony either. Sure. I don't want to be he's the geezer that just makes like roll and writes games. but yeah, I haven't finished with it yet. Let's put it like that. But I don't want to just kind of like knock them out just to knock them out. So yeah.
I guess you bring up a good point though. Like so Hadrian's was a big success. Anarchy looks to be really, really great too. They're both X and right, Euro rights, whatever you want to call them. Do you have plans for a game that doesn't use those mechanics? So it's something that has, I guess, a more permanent sort of setup that's on the board.
Well, I mean, I've got another game that will be hopefully coming to Kickstarter beginning of next year that I was asked to work on. I can't tell you too much about this one, but it's not a roll and write. It's a different mechanics, which has been really nice to be, just from a design perspective. And that's working with Arcus, who did Dreadful Meadows and Shelfie Stacker, and just done Storm Raiders. And I'm working with an artist called Wayne Barlow, who's like a quite a well-known artist in the field of like sci-fi artist. He's worked with Guillermo del Toro and James Cameron.
Cool.
He's done if you look at his artwork, you can see, like, certainly with Avatar, you can certainly see where that some of the creature designs come from. So that's been really good, just working with working in a different kind of form and different style, and so so that's somewhere off next year, so that's doing all right.
Good on you.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome. Well, we have a couple of questions from our Patreon members, if you don't mind
worries.
Going through them. Look, there was a one from our buddy Draven, and he asked, and we kind of covered this, so I might just change a little bit. He said, have you always been interested in the Anarchy, or was it something you came across while designing the game? It sounds like a fascinating period in history. And we've sort of touched on that already. I might then throw the caveat, what's an interesting fact or little tidbit that happened during this that you were like, that is really strange or weird?
I don't think there's anything that's strange or weird occurred, but certainly, as I said, it was the fact that I wanted to find a period where there was castles being built for a particular purpose before the advent of gunpowder and before they could get destroyed. And so it was like, okay, let's have a look at that, and then thought this could do, and then just diving into it. And it wasn't just diving into that. It was also how do you build castles? What was the crack about building castles? So there was a whole slew of books I was reading about that as well. Again, it's you end up building everything, and then you end up combing down. I think I probably told you before, Shem and Sam probably, I think they work in the reverse, where they build something nice and then they build it out, and I have a tendency to throw everything in the kitchen sink and having to just peel stuff back. So but yeah, it's really the mechanic at this point kind of like made me look for the right theme, and then I kind of came from that.
Yeah, cool. Our next one is from Jonathan. His first part isn't a question. So, Jonathan, I'm disappointed, you being a teacher of English, that you don't know what question means. Because he says, I want to know as much about his next game as you can share, which you have done, and then some.
And then some.
Yeah. And he said, and also would be nice to know how and why Dan started getting into a run of beating me at the game of Hadrian's Wall.
I was the wall that he kept running into. I crushed him. But it's one of my most played games. I was just checking my stats before. It's my 6th most played game. I've played it 32 times.
Wow.
I overdosed on BGA during COVID, or just after COVID, I think. And so I haven't played any BGA at all for quite a couple of years now. But I think this might be... It's like I'm feeling the draw in from Hadrian's Wall to give it a go.
It's so good
on BGA.
It's so good on BGA, and you save paper. I've been championing this.
I must say, I was expecting the Anarchy to go to like 4 pages instead of 2. I wanted to see it upscale in.
I don't know. It's There's only so much people can manage. But no, maybe that's next one. Maybe we start going
4 pages. Like Twilight, the Twilight Inscription. That's too much, man. That's like that's a lot. I like it. I think the chalk pens kind of like
drive me up the wall a little bit. But I sometimes, I don't know about you, but I sometimes lose which bonuses I've managed to. You know, I go and I forgot to use that one that was on that sheet over there. Do you know what I mean?
If only they had a component that would remind you that you've got the bonus.
Write to them another word.
Come on, fans, fly. And our last one is from Shoitan, who always gives us an entertaining question. He said, "Is there going to be a Trump reskin of Hadrian's?"
Building the wall.
Way away from politics.
I was going to say, let's throw that.
It's not my monkeys.
Look, Bobby, it's been great chatting to you. I'm hoping you're going to stay around for the rest of our segments, have a chat about some sizzles, some games we've been playing, if that's okay.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Oh, awesome.
If you're looking for a new board game, you need to check out adventgames.com.au. They have a great range of games, including pre-orders and hot new games. Anything you could be looking for will be there at Advent. Dean provides excellent customer service that is second to none, and he's always keen to support the Australian board game community through events, game days, and even through sponsoring a podcast. So head over to adventgames.com.au today. That's adventgames.com.au.
So we might get into our sizzles, and I might start with Joe. So Joe, what's the slash? What's the deal with this slash? Is it the same game? Is it different games?
It's the same game. So I'm going to be talking about a game called Fungi or Morels, depending on where in the world you are. Morels, Morels. So I played this quite a bit with my husband now. It's a 2-player game. It's a card-based game. And I've just really enjoyed it. I've just found it. I find some 2-player games a bit back and forth, I guess, but I found the gameplay loop of this game really interesting. So it's a game where you're essentially playing as mushroom foragers, and you're going. So the theme's quite cozy. You're going through the forest and you're collecting mushrooms to cook. And the way the game works is that there's a deck of cards that has mushrooms and other things in it. You have a market that comes out in a line of 8 cards. And then you'll each have a hand of cards that is made up of mushrooms. The other types of things you can have in your hand are things that will make the mushrooms more tasty when you cook them later. So things like butter, cider. There are pans that you can have in your hand, which you need to use to cook the mushrooms. And so the way the game works is that you're going to go through the whole deck, and the only cards you score are the cards that are the mushrooms that you've cooked, and it's essentially a set collection game. So it's a game where you're looking for sets of mushrooms. There are different species of mushrooms that score you different points. So the rarer mushrooms will score you more points if you manage to collect a set of that, and it increases in value the more mushrooms of that type you have. So you're really trying to balance. Am I going to hold on to all of this species of mushroom now to hope that I'll get more that come out, or will I play them now, cook them now to make sure I don't lose them later? There's a hand limit, so it's a bit tight. It feels tight that you're trying to manage what am I going to keep in my hand, what am I going to get rid of as well. The conceit of the game is that in this card market, the last 2 cards are free, and so on your turn you can pick up mushrooms from a mushroom from one of the free cards. You can pay a resource to get mushrooms that are higher up in the market, and the way that you get that is by spending mushroom cards on your turn. And then there's this really interesting mechanic where the market ages. So when you finish your turn, the cards all move to the right. Any cards that are on the end will fall into this decay space. And this is kind of the thematic tie-in where the mushrooms become part of the decay in the forest, and you can actually pick them up from that decay pile. And so you pick up all the cards from that pile, and it can hold up to 4 cards. So rather than picking up 1 card from the market, for example, you can pick up 4 cards at once. The twist with that is that there is a type of mushroom that has negative implications. There's a mushroom that essentially poisons you. I think it's called
the death cap.
It's called the destroying angel mushroom, which is even more dramatic. And so you can kind of, it's what happens when you take that mushroom is that you have to discard all the cards out of your hand down to 4, and then so you potentially are losing lots of scoring cards if you pick up that mushroom. But then you get this situation where the poison mushroom's in the decay, but there's like 3 of the other type of mushrooms that you might really need to make a big set, and so it's balancing, do I want to lose some cards to gain some cards? And so I just thought it was really clever. The having to cook the mushrooms to score them later on, I thought was really clever, and it forced you to, because once you cook them, that's it. You can't add any more mushrooms to the pile. So it kind of gives you this tension of, should I cook now? Should I cook later? And there are ways to increase your hand. There are other twists in the game as well. And as I said earlier, there's like butter and cider that you can add to the cooking to increase the point value of that particular thing. So really enjoyed it. I'd heard Shut Up and Sit Down talk about it previously, and I'd been looking for it for a while, and I happened to find it. I think it was in Japan. When I was in Japan, I happened to find a copy, and have been playing it like once a week, basically, with my husband since. Highly recommend.
I was going to ask where you'd heard about it, because it's quite old. 2012. I'm just looking at it now.
Yeah, it is pretty old. Maybe I'm getting it wrong that Shut Up and Sit Down spoke about it. It's one of those games where often I'll be on this hunt for games to play with my husband, and then this had come up, and I was like, oh, this looks good. I can take it traveling with us, because it's just a deck of cards, essentially. Yeah, really good.
The whole idea of, do I cook them now or do I risk losing them? That reminds me a lot of archaeology, where it's like, okay, like, am I going to spend the cards now? And I only have 3. I could get 5, but there's only 10 of these, and I've noticed that 2 people have already got some. So what do I do? That actually, so that mechanic, I'm a big fan of, because it's a form of push your luck, right? But
100%.
In this one, you taking is taking the I actually just saw it, the Death Angel, whatever it's called. Is that is that random? Is that the only way that you can lose cards?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think that's the only way you can lose cards. I think you can choose to discard cards, I think, as well, if you go over your hand limit.
Yeah.
But I don't think you're never forced to take it from the market. It's more just if you take it from the decay, I think that you then will have to. Yeah,
and aside from someone pinching something from you in archaeology, you still have choice of what you want to get rid of, and it's only half. So it's like, oh, well, like, you can still end up having a good turn afterwards. Yeah, that looks really cool. And the pans, like the pans. Like,
the little pans.
I couldn't play that with my nieces because they just end up playing with the pans. And the sticks. Are the sticks like the payments? Is that what's going on?
Yeah. So you can discard on your turn. One of the things you can do is that's how you can discard cards out of your hand, is you can discard sets of the same mushrooms to get sticks, and the sticks are what you spend to then buy cards higher up in the market.
Yeah, cool. Bobby, have you heard of this game before? Seen it?
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah, no, it looks like
interesting.
Yeah, it looks like a cool 2-player game. So that is Morels, or fungi, from Joe. Dan, what is your one? This is kind of cool. This is a nice little thing that you can do by yourself or with other people.
Yeah, I play this solo. So I play a lot of escape room style, because I love the puzzle element of all those. Big fan of the Exit series and Unlock, and I've played some of the Deckscape ones. And we were fortunate enough to be given from Board and Dice their latest 2 in what I'm assuming is going to be a new ongoing series called Sidequest. And there is Sidequest 7th Sea, which I haven't played, which is based on their 7th Sea game. But they've also partnered with Awakened Realms to do Sidequest Nemesis, which is an escape room style game. But this one is fantastic. I really, really enjoyed this one. I love because there's so many different escape room style, exit style, unlock style games on the market, that a lot of them start to feel a little bit samey. But this one, the puzzles were really, really clever. The story is that you're trying to get off the ship before, I think you got there's a hibernation chamber that you're trying to get into, and you literally take out these 2 cards that fold out into like 2 L shapes, and they slot inside the box to form a 4-sided box. And then as you're playing as you're playing through the puzzles, you get the door to the hibernation chamber, and once you solve that puzzle, you flip the card and you slot it in. So you're forming this 3-dimensional chamber, if you like, and then once you've finished the chamber, what you've placed and where forms another puzzle around the exterior of that room, and you need to solve that puzzle in order to be able to enter the room. And then there's more puzzles inside the room as well, based on the floor and what's on the walls and all the other cards and that are in the deck. It was just really, really clever. There's a few other things that come with it that are sort of that you can punch out. So it's not just looking at objects on a card and trying to work out the puzzle there. You physically have some things, almost like there's one puzzle that's like the old tangram, where you've got different shapes, almost like polyomino shapes. You're trying to make a different thing. There's another puzzle to do with weights, trying to get in the cargo bay, trying to get the 4 pallets to weigh the correct amount, but this can't be next to that, and this can't be above that, and there's certain parameters and things you have to do. Really, really enjoyed it. I'll get into the 7th Sea as well, and we'll post some photos on socials for anyone, some spoilerish free photos for anyone who's interested in them. But yeah, I did want to mention them this week because they are really, really great, and there's some really clever puzzles that I hadn't seen before in what is still essentially a really, really small box, and it takes up a really small footprint. You can do these puzzles with a group, and it's always good to do those, because if you don't get into a one-track mind when you're doing it solo, as opposed to doing it with a group, you can bounce ideas off people, and there's other cards where you actually take a penalty if you get it wrong, or if you need a hint or what have you, and that affects the end game. So I led to believe I didn't fail any of the puzzles because
Galaxy brain.
Because I'm a genius.
Is it timed?
No, it's not. It's not timed per se, but there is what they call an infection deck, and if for every mistake you make, you have to flip a card over, and things can get pretty grim, pretty quick.
Just like the base game, which is I'm a big fan of Nemesis.
Yeah, the artwork is exactly the same. So they didn't just borrow the theme; they've borrowed the artists and everything. So it almost does feel like a mini Nemesis game, if you like, but it's essentially an escape room style puzzle game. So yep, highly recommend Sidequest Nemesis. And I'm sure the 7th. I'm not actually familiar with the 7th Sea game itself. I'm led to believe it's kind of like an exploration adventure style game. But Nemesis is chef's kiss.
Yes. It looks really good. Like when you started to describe it as an escape room game, my experience of those is they're basically a deck of cards.
Yeah.
Whereas this looks great. There's extra components. There's like a standee for your character.
Yeah.
It looks like next level compared to your standard escape
room.
When
you start out, and this is not a spoiler, but it starts off, you actually lay out these 6 rooms, and you can move in between the rooms, and if there's a puzzle that you're not quite sure of, you can always come back to it. And I sort of went, okay, so there's 6 puzzles, but there's a lot more beyond just those rooms. That's just to try and get all your bits and bobs together to enter the hibernation chamber, and from there you're only about maybe halfway through the game, because there's still a hell of a lot more puzzles and things to explore and do from there. But all up, it plays in about an hour 20.
Cool.
But yeah, it was definitely a really, really good experience.
Any replayability, or is it one of those like similar to the others where
one and done for this one? Yeah, because once you know the puzzles, yeah.
Can you pass it on to someone
absolutely.
else?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
all the cards are numbered, so once you've played them, sort of you can reorder them into a certain order, and it has those certain points where it's like stop, don't do the next card until you're asked to, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, but this will be in the Melbourne, I'll be in the Board Game BBQ library for anyone to check out at one of our game days.
Cool. That was cool. So that was Sidequest Nemesis. Bobby, because we haven't heard from you enough this episode, you've been writing some classical music with your game.
Yeah, no, big fan of Lacrimosa. We played it last week. Thematically, super on point. It's a beautiful looking game on the table as well. It's got some really nice player boards. You could say it's over engineered, but I don't care. I think when it plays that well, it's really good. It's it's around you like your patrons helping Mozart's widow to complete his unfinished symphony. And yeah, it's a beautiful game. It's really good. It's got some really nice chunky decisions without kind of like blowing too much of your back of your brain out. And I mean, the main mechanic is really, you've got 9 player cards, and you'll never have any more than 9 player cards. Sorry, before I ramble on, has anyone else played this here? No, okay.
No.
So you'll never have any more than 9 player cards, and each round of the 5 rounds, you'll be playing 8 of them. And so you draw 4, and then you're going to play 2 cards. And one of those cards is an action, and you actually slot it into your player board, so only the top is exposed. And then the other card you play is going to give you resources at the end of the turn. And so you've got dual action cards. So you've got a nice little decision space about what you're going to do, what you're going to need. And then so what's going to happen is you play these like 4 times over those each round, and so you have your 4 actions, and then you have your 4 resources you're going to get back. And each of the actions are, one of them improves the cards that you have, so you can do, like, either when you do an action you may get some extra resources, or it may be a card that allows you to do 2 actions. But what it means is that the card you pair it with, you have to chuck away, and then you use that card. So you can't play it straight away, but you're going to get the resources at the bottom. And the problem there is that you want to make sure of the 5 actions that you could do on the board, you don't ham fist yourself to the point where you go, I can't do that action anymore. And so you play those out. But so you can improve your cards. What you can do, you can buy other cards that allow you to put on, like, symphonies that get you money, or you can sell it to actually get you like victory points. You can run around this map and pick up, bits and pieces and scoring opportunities and bonus end game scoring opportunities. And then at the bottom of the board, you can you've got like a musical sheet, and you've employed 2 of the 4 every game. You employ 2 composers, and you help them. You become the patron. You're like betting on which one is actually going to finish that part of the symphony off, and you'll get more bonus points if you are in the majority. So there's a bit of like to and froing between the players. So there's a nice little, although you've got your own game to play, there's certainly you're like, please don't go there, please don't go there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that as well. So yeah, it's a stunning game. Really, really good. Really good. Thematically on point, beautiful to look at, really nice mechanically. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I've seen it played at one of our game days, I think Brisbane, when I went up there, and yeah, it looks amazing. Like, it was just like unbelievable. Like you said, maybe overproduced, over-engineered, but I mean, I always look at it as board games are luxury items. So if you can make it cheap, that's great, that's cool. But sometimes you just love having those bits and bobs that are just.
So the only issue is you can't sleeve the cards. That's
because
they slot in.
they don't fit in. Yeah,
but yeah, no, you're right. I mean, if the game, there's a game. What's that? Was it Flamecraft? I felt like that game's overproduced, for what it is. But this one, it didn't feel overproduced, because it felt that the actual, that what you're playing felt totally in with the actual game itself.
Yeah. And it, from what I've heard, everyone that's played it has really enjoyed it too. So it must be an absolute cracker. I'm looking forward. I will play it one day. I promise. And you other two should as well. I'm just saying, you should play it well.
This game looks 100% up my alley. Being like the Lacerda collector in my game group, it looks really good. I'm not sure how it kind of flew under my radar. Like, I'd heard of it, but didn't realize what it was really about. And looking at the board and the way that you use the multi-action cards, looks I said, 100% up my alley.
That's what I was going to say. The multi-action cards I love, and like you were talking about, the patrons and then betting on the scoring like that. I really enjoy. I'm no good at predicting the outcomes of games, but I really enjoy that mechanic, and then almost like seeing how people can stitch me up and be like, no, I'm going to do that, and now you don't score that for as much, whatever. I'm like, oh, that was such a good turn, and you're lucky I'm so bad at games, and I'll let you win. So that's kind of what I'm going for. So yeah, so that was Lacrimosa. Thank you, Bobby, for that. I'll round us out with perhaps the furthest thing from Mozart, and that is MLEM, the Cat Space Agency. So I think Dana's talked about this game before. So MLEM, so what MLEM is it's a push your luck game. It's by Ronnie Knizia, and what you are doing is you are part of a group of cat astronauts who are effectively trying to get
in
space. You're trying to get effectively to deep space, and once you're in deep space, I guess you've kind of found a new galaxy and you want to stay there. But effectively, what happens is in each of these spots, you roll die, and one person is the captain, and they're responsible for rolling the die. But you work together to decide what dice you're actually going to use. So on the die, it's a normal D6, except there is an afterburner instead of a 6. So there's 1 through 5, then the afterburners. Afterburners will generally move you 1 or 2 spaces. So I'm going to try and explain this right, because it makes sense when you play it, but it can kind of be a little bit confusing when you're learning it. So on a spot, particular dice will allow you to move. So let's say, for example, you're on a spot and it's got the afterburners, 1s and 2s. So if you roll the die and you have afterburners, you can use afterburners and they return to your dice pool. However, if you use any other numbered die, they are spent and you don't get them back. And you only start with 5 or 6, and you need to make it up X amount of spaces. So you need to make it to the end. So, for example, if 2s were rolled and you rolled 2 2s, you could move 4 spaces. If 4s were rolled and you took 3 4s, you would move 12 spaces. So there's kind of push and pull, really simple stuff of going, all right, I can spend some die to move fewer spaces, or I can spend more to move a lot further. And what happens is if you get to a spot and you do not roll the required die, your ship blows up. Now, thankfully, the cat technology is so advanced that they just return to base. So you don't lose your cat astronauts. You don't lose your
lives, don't they?
Yeah, that's true. And there might have been 9 rounds, Dan, so that's very thematic. But what we played with a couple of modules where each of the cats had a special ability. So one of them was you might get a star, like a boost to where you're starting, which is like a little satellite. One of them is when you're docking, so you can choose to land on a moon or a planet, and when you normally you're on one particular spot, so whether it's to do with a planet or a moon. Now what happens is that if you decide to land, the cat power means you can move either up or down one spot. So while everyone else might be getting off on a planet that is highly inhabited, you might get to go to a planet that is not highly inhabited, and that would then give you preference in terms of it becomes an area majority game for scoring. We also play with a couple of different modules where we got boosts if we landed on a particular spot, so that allowed people to get to deep space a little bit more easily. We played with an expansion where they had dogs. So when you landed on a planet, the dogs had already been there, and they'd already sort of like, I don't know, dastardly dogs. They'd already been there. And when you open it up, when you landed on the planet, you then had some sort of bonus. Or sometimes what happened to poor Jace is like, oh, no one's on this planet. I'm going to land. But however, when he flipped it over, what happened was, if the dogs had the same number of astronauts on that planet as you, they actually had majority. So it was like all these other bonus tiles were like helpful to us, except for Jace, who was pretty much stitched up by his dog. So it meant that so let's say, for example, he had majority when he had 2, the dog would also have a majority of 2s, or 2.5, so he'd have to move 3. Anyway, it's really silly. It's a lot of fun. You have those things where it's like, anyone getting off? And like, nah. And then because you're the last person, you're like, I'm getting off, suckers. And you get off and you hop on there. And then the next time it blows up. And it's always a case of, oh, we could roll a 2, a 3, and a 5 and we'll move. And you don't roll any of them. Like, it's always that type of stuff that happens. So yeah, it's really, really fun. It's pretty silly. It is in our board game libraries up in Brisbane and in Melbourne as well. So if you're keen, and more on this later, if you're keen to play it at one of our game days, let us know, and we might be able to set up a game using Aftergame. But yeah, that rounds out our sizzle. So we had Morels / fungi from Joe. We had Sidequest Nemesis from Board and Dice from Dan, Lacrimosa from Bobby, and MLEM from myself. And we might continue on and head on to some announcements and news. All right, cool. So just a couple of announcements coming up. We have the Brisbane Game Day next weekend, so March 23rd at the Royal on Park. We have changed our location, our venue for this event because it's going to be a big one where all of the Board Game BBQ team, for the first time since 2021, Dan? We're all going to be in the same place with new members in tow. So Joe will be there, Lauren will be there, Dana will be there, as well as will all the rest of us. Jules, Mitch, myself, and Dan, of course, will all be there. We are super excited. We cannot wait, along with the rest of the Brisbane crew. So cannot wait for that. There'll be a More Than Meeples pop-up store. And Dan, do we have a number of tickets available? I think
I'm not sure there are many left at all. I think at last check today there was one left. But there is a wait. But there is a wait list. So yeah, just you can still jump on the wait list, and if someone backs out, then you'll be first in line. So if you've sat on it for too long, sorry, but best bet is to jump on the wait list and then hope that you get a spot.
Yeah, so super excited about that. And another thing I'm super excited about, me excited about something, PlayCon, the 12th to the 14th of July at Hurstville in Sydney. We have talked about this ad nauseum, but we can't wait for this to happen. We're super excited about it. Enormous table space with a massive games library, panels and special events with game designers, publishers, and others from the board game industry. One aspect that we have talked about in the past, but we can't wait to talk about more, is the Designer Alley, with local designers showcasing their latest creations for you to play, provide feedback, and support the board gaming scene in Australia. So if you are a designer and you would like to have a spot on Designer Alley, there's spots still available if you have a game to show. So just use the website of play-con.com. Lots of fun activities are going to go on as well. So we've got trivia. We have had a hoot at our trivia at South by Southwest, and also whenever we have them on our Discord, we're going to have a Jackbox party night and much, much, much more. Can't wait to see you there in July. How good! So
it's not going to be long at all.
It's not going to be long.
So close.
So yes, no, we're super stoked for that. So that rounds out the news and announcements. So a couple of big things going on there, and we'll move on to last week's question of the pod. So last week's question of the pod was what board game has your favorite animal theme? Bobby, you told us you've done some research for this. You have a board game with your favorite animal theme. What is yours?
It's funny. I mean, I realised I don't actually have many animal board games, but I really do like. I like trick-taking games. Has anyone played Bakoko?
No.
But
that's
I like trick-taking games
it's an
too.
interesting game because you're literally playing. It's the way that the card is set up is you're actually holding a peacock out in front of you, and the feathers of the and you got your actually it's almost like the things that they've designed for small kids to hold their cards in, but it's like that, but it looks like a peacock in the back of your cards, which you cannot see. And everyone else can see your cards.
Yes.
So it's a bit like what's it called? The
Hanabi.
Hanabi. It's a little bit like Hanabi, but instead of like playing with each other, you're playing against each other. And what you're doing is you're playing the person to the left's hand. But you're betting, yeah. So you're not actually playing your own hand. So you're and the aim of the game is really the idea is that you're trying to work out how many tricks you're going to get based on what everyone else is doing as well. And so but it's great, you're holding these peacocks and you've got these feathers, and so you just have all these people and it plays up to 5, I think. So big fan of that one. So
that actually sounds really, really fun, and I love those games like Hanabi where you're like I don't know, I'm just going to pick this. Like, this sounds really cool. So that's a good one. Dan, have you got one?
I've just been checking my collection behind me to try and work out if I have any animal ones, because I don't really think I do. But I've actually just realised that there's There's two games that I love that have animals in them. I don't know whether they're very thematic in terms of animals, but Bites, and it's ants.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I love Bites. Bites is a fantastic game. But another one that is a little bit unsung, I know I've sizzled it on the show before, but Fabled Fruit, where the cards are different kinds of animals in the forest, and you're trying to collect them, but every different animal has a different ability or a different action, and then you cycle them out because there's only 4 of each in the forest, and then once all of those animals go out, you introduce a new animal to the forest, and then those animals don't return because I think there's 60 different kinds of animals, and you only play with 12, and so the game actually evolves every time you play it. You're playing with a new or an updated set of animals in the forest, and some of the abilities that you were using last time aren't present anymore, but there's new abilities for this time that you play. Love that game. So I'll say Fabled Fruit.
Yeah. Joe, what about you? Have you got a favourite animal theme?
Oh, it has to be Root. Root's my number one game. And I think the thing I love about it is just that cleverness of having this cutesy, woodland animal, beautiful art that does lies to you.
100%.
You know that there's this bloody war game underneath it, which I think catches some people by surprise. But I think it allows them to really push the foot on the pedal of going really interactive, really in your face, backstabbing, which maybe you couldn't necessarily do if it was a more serious theme, for example. So Root for me.
And Carl Ferron's art just makes it. And then the meat, beautiful. Yeah, it's so good, so good. But it's not up to us; it's about the community. So, Dan, could you please read out some of the community responses?
Conor, I would love to do that for you.
Oh, that's great.
Craig Summerton, and this is the answer I should have said, for Northwood. Love that game. He said, for Northwood has the cutest illustrations. I concur, sir. Tegan Smith said, Reef Encounter. It has cute little shrimples.
They look funny.
And she said she was painting them when she was pregnant. Jean Rhodes says, Kingdom Death Monster. I guess monsters are animals.
They are. Lots of them are monsters. They actually came up a couple of times.
Did it?
So, yeah.
Okay.
One was Hadrian, so we can just...
And Mika, Georgiades, said Dodos Riding Dinosaurs, which I'm not familiar with, but I need to find out what this is. Dodos Riding Dinosaurs.
Joe, do you want to read out some of our other responses?
Oh, sure. So from our Discord, we had Sam M, who, as I said on the Discord, a man of taste, said that Root takes the top spot for them. Aside from the delectable meeples and Carl Ferron's playful artwork, the way Cole Worley has built the lore around the woodland really sings throughout each play. And I totally agree that the theme, I think, ties in really well with the art. And the world is full of thematic resonance that you feel when you pilot each faction.
Thematic resonance. I like that term.
What a phrase. Giles from the Discord also said that their favourite animal theme is Zoovardis, which is a reskin of an ancient Roman politics game, and Knizia's Quo Vadis. The politics of which animal gets to run the zoo is delightfully wacky, and if you haven't checked out the deluxe version, you should. It's a beautiful production as well as having that majestic box art. I've seen the art for this, and I think the thing that really stands out to me for this game is the really huge, chunky wooden animal meeples, which I think is cool. Ben from the Discord said that their favourite animal theme is currently Takanoko because that cheeky panda always gets personified whenever they play, everyone making munching noises every time he eats some bamboo, but said that it might be overtaken soon as getting excited to get drop bears to the table and paint up those incredible minis. And then we have Kezrez from the Discord who said that they adore the animeeples in Llama Land and look at how cute they are. I won't admit that that's a game I've had in shrink for literal years, but anyway, I'm keen to get it to the table. But their favourite animal theme is definitely Wingspan Oceania, as it's beautiful, has facts about the birds, and it's great to see so many wonderful Aussie birds in the game as well. And then, Dan, you had Kev1981 on the Discord agree with you.
I saw that.
Yeah, for Northwood. And they loved the cute art and the theme of debating leaders in the forest. And they said that not specifically an animal theme, but Parks has the best nature theme and art as well.
And then I'll just round us out with some Instagram responses. We had Mr. and Mrs. Maple said Dog Park, We just love our dogs. Kindred spirits there with me. Table Taps Games. They said Root is just too good when you think about the whole package. The game, the meeples, the underlying tension of the woodland critters are all vying for dominance of the woodland. So what yourself and Sam said there, Joe. And then Vest Skittles said Bark Avenue, which I think is relatively popular at the moment. So that's cool. But so that was last week's question of the pod. Seeing as we have Bobby on the show, and he both his games have some great historical settings, our next question of the pod is, what historical setting would you like to see made as a board game? What historical setting would you like to see made as a board game? Bobby, what would yours be? You got free reign. You can pick whatever you want.
I don't know whether I have a few that I'm actually actively working on at the moment, and I'll tell you offline about
Sure,
them.
that's fine.
But no, I mean, I love the something to do with the Anglo-Saxon. So I mean, like the period of time when the Romans buggered off, and the time that the Normans invaded. So there's that whole pretty much they call it Dark Ages for good reason, because no one knows exactly when went on there. So, but it must be something. So I wouldn't mind, having an explore around that particular area. Yeah, there's got to be some gold to mine there.
Dan, do you have one?
Historical setting. Do you remember around like 2020, 2021 where there was like this outbreak? I was thinking maybe like a game where you like a cooperative game where you're trying to manage these sort of outbreaks around the world.
You know what?
Almost like a Actually, that's not a bad name for a pandemic. Something. No. In all seriousness, there was an idea, like a kernel of idea that I was sort of kicking around once upon a time, and it was kind of based around the gold rush era in Australia and the gold fields. I never got very far, but it was my intention to sort of dive into the history of that and to see if anything sort of jumped out at me. I just kind of like the idea of the various ways that you could try and get gold, where it's simple as panning or digging or using TNT, and that could be, that in itself could be an escalation of trying to get it, and the whole thing behind fool's gold as well as actual gold, and weights and measures and something around that with the what's the biggest nugget that was ever found? Was it the golden handshake or something like that? Anyway, that always interests me, even as a kid, with Sovereign Hill and Bendigo and the goldfields here in Australia. And I know that was a big things really kicked off for a period there when the gold rush hit and people came from everywhere to try and stake their claim and try and strike it rich. So I thought that in itself is a vein of gold.
Hey? Yes, love that. It's probably one thing that international listeners don't realise, that we had a huge gold rush here in Australia, particularly in Victoria, across two of the towns, really, and it sort of set up a lot of immigration and stuff like that as well. So it's pretty important to our culture. Joe, do you have a historical setting? Please don't say 2021.
I'm not going to say. I'm a healthcare worker, so it's way too soon for me to be thinking about playing games about pandemics. Do you guys see that meme recently? Wasn't that long ago, about asking the men in your life how many times they think about the Roman Empire?
Yeah.
That's me. Unfortunately, that's me. But I'm going to say something more interesting than that. What I think would be really cool, I've got Spanish roots, so my family are from Spain, and I think it'd be cool to see a game, kind of themed around what the Iberian Peninsula was like before the Romans were there, and the pre-Roman kind of civilization that was there. I know there's quite a long Ottoman and Persian kind of background from the Moors in Spain. So saying something about that, I think, would be cool.
Yeah. And funnily enough, my one too is about my heritage as well. So it'd be something, between in Ireland about I guess the crossover of the religions, where sort of Catholicism came in and became the important religion and stuff and stuff like that. So that would be pretty cool, I'd imagine. But as per usual, it's not up to us; it's up to you guys. So the question we're going out, please, on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and on Twitter/X. Let us know what you think. What historical setting would you like to see be made as a board game? Speaking of our community, we are so grateful to our Patreon sponsors. So we'd just like to plug a couple of new Patrons. So the first being Oliver Taff, Olivia Gabby, Reese Barnard, and Roar of the Mongoose. So thank you to you four. So you're our new patrons for episode 285. Speaking of our patrons, if you'd like to support the podcast, you can always go to patreon.com/boardgamebarbecue, sign up and donate, get access to exclusive podcast episodes that are recorded just for you, as well as other Patreon events. But there are plenty of other ways to support us without donating. The easiest way is to, of course, tell your mates. You can go to Apple Podcasts and leave a star rating and review for us, or use Spotify's star rating system. And it takes a few seconds of your time, but it does mean the world to us. You can also get involved in the Board Game Barbecue by joining our Facebook community. Always some great stuff going on there. Thank you to Dana. Following us on X, and that is Loz. So thank you, Loz, for sorting that out, as well as Instagram and or YouTube. And of course, there is our Discord community where there are always games and conversations going on. We've got off-topic forums where I spend a lot of my useless energy on sports and all other stuff, including video games. We're organizing video games, and the design channel is popping off as well. So get involved and support the show. All links are in the show notes. Dan, do you have a review to read?
Yes, we do have a review. We had a review come in from Sugar. So thanks very much to you from this. They're based in the United States, and their review is, I've been listening to this podcast for a while now, and I found myself really looking forward to Mondays. It's a big cast of characters that rotate weekly to put out the episodes, and it's taken me a while to become familiar with each of them. My new favorite is Dana, as I find myself cracking up every time she is on. All of the hosts are informative, knowledgeable, well-spoken, truly exude a love for board games, and they just seem like good people. There's something really cool about living in Idaho and having the same experiences and feelings about board games as people clear across the other side of the world in Australia. Great podcast, guys.
Well, thank you for that review, Sugar. But you clearly haven't listened to any episodes I've been on, if you think we're all
I was going to say the same. No, I must say, Dana's one of my favourites too.
She is a dag.
What a great review. Thanks so much. Sugar, all the way out there in Idaho. Shout out to Idaho.
Yeah. All right, so let's bring this podcast home with the swearing of oaths. Bobby, I'm going to come back to you because on the last episode, your oath was...
it was to give myself a break.
It was to smell the roses. Did you give yourself a break, or was it straight into the Anarchy?
So I said... Well, I tell you what, I mean, it's kind of off. I don't think I'm really built like that, to be honest, but I did manage to say, I think part of it was actually going over, I did actually go over 2021 and actually walk Hadrian's Wall, finally.
Oh, yes.
Oh, fantastic.
So that was great. But yeah, so I've actually dropped down to 4 days a week now. Like my other job, that job. And so I've got like one dedicated day now where I can game design. So in some ways that's the best I can do about giving myself a break. So yeah.
I thought maybe hitting up some Fortnite with your son was going to be your smelling of the roses.
That's just sweaty. There's nothing that raises blood pressure. That's what it does. Yeah.
Very good. And look, without putting you under the pump, but we'd love to have you back. And
I would love to come back.
What oath would you like to make?
I tell you what, I mean, it's funny that Dan said it, but I've got season 2 of Pandemic sitting there at May, and it's been sitting there for the last 6 months that me and my wife have just not got around to. So next time I come back, I aim to have that finished. There we go. I'll do that one.
Cool.
Good.
And lots of people who want to talk to you about it as well, I'd imagine. Dan, how did you go with your one?
Oh, so good. My oath was to play 7th Citadel, which arrived recently, and I played the first introductory campaign and loved it. It's like comfort food for me. It's just, I was in my happy place the entire time I was playing this game. It is different to 7th Continent, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because I'm going to be on the show again in a couple of weeks with Mitch, who I know has played it as well, and I thought maybe one of us or the two of us could sizzle it then. But suffice to say, there are enough differences to the new things that it introduces are really, really good, particularly when you get to the end of the first introductory. You actually you escape the citadel, because that's sort of that's the initial point of that introductory scenario. But then you form a settlement, and that acts as like a home base for you then to go on with all the other books. That comes with 2 books. There's other expansions as well, and they're all broken into different chapters, different adventures, almost like fetch. Some of them are like fetch quests. Some of them are more sort of objective driven. You got to get to point A or point B or what have you. So whereas Seventh Continent was all about coming home from this island and then realizing you're cursed and you have to return to the island and try and lift the curse, and depending on what the curse is, you'll start in a different point of the island and continent, I should say, and you're exploring certain parts of the continent trying to lift this curse with various objectives. And then you might come across parts of the map where you go, oh, I've been here before, because 3 times ago when I played it, I actually came to this spot here, so I've got a vague recollection. This one is you're starting at a base. As you do these chapters and reach these objectives, you actually build things in your base, and you start with different, which allows you to start with different resources or different things the next time you go out. And I'm presuming they get more and more challenging as you go work through the chapters, but you're also building up your base so that you can actually have more resources when you start, or different abilities or different. It's really, really exciting. And I'm only playing this solo, but I can see how there would be advantages to playing with more people, because then you can probably build your bases better or share items or what have you. But just my initial impression is I'm super impressed with Seventh Citadel. It's actually going to be my next oath to continue playing more Seventh Citadel, so that when I do sizzle it in a few weeks' time, I'll have a bit more play time under my belt to talk about it. But loving it so far.
Nice. Yes, I actually have really fond memories. I've never played it, but remembering you talking about Seventh Continent in one of our very first few episodes.
Talking or gushing? Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, tomato. Yeah, that brings back a lot of good memories as well. So, Joe, what about yours? How successful were you?
Incredibly not. So I'm learning lessons. I'm newest on the pod. I'm learning lessons. The lessons are: don't do oaths that rely on your partner, and don't do oaths where either you or your game group that plays heavy games go away. So I was meant to do Ticket to Ride Legacy, which I was planning to do with my partner, my sister and her boyfriend, but it's been really difficult to get everyone around the same table. So I think my husband and I are just going to play it. I think we're just going to do it and get through it and give it a go. And then the other oath was to play Barcelona, which I was interested in because, my family are from Barcelona. But again, my game group who play heavy games together, they are away at the moment. So they're my excuses. But I'm going to play both of them. My plan then, I'm going to shift tack and I'm going to do something I can solo. And so I've been waiting to play Too Many Bones Unbreakable and haven't quite had the time to get it to the table yet. And I reckon once I get it to the table, I'll probably smash through that campaign. So that mini campaign. So that's my oath, is to play Too Many Bones Unbreakable.
Yeah. Very good. A lot of fun playing that, actually, which is not going to surprise anyone. So I'll round it out. I had 2 oaths. One was to play something new, and I did. I played lots of new stuff. One of the things I did play was kind of new, but it was ARCS, so ARCS, the latest iteration of that. And that's coming out soon, I believe. Holy moly, that game is going to be sick. It was a lot of fun.
Man.
Yeah,
Can't wait.
Yeah, you are, Joe. You are going to love it. You're going to love it so much. My other part of my oath was to continue playing ISS. I have not had the time to set up ISS and play, so I'm very, very sorry. 10 lashes, whatever it takes, I'll just cop it. But and this is going to make Joe upset. So, because we're heading up to Brisbane for the Brisbane Game Day weekend, I'm having a little bit of extra time off, and I'm going up Thursday and Friday. And I've been offered a game of John Company 2nd Edition. So I'm hoping that I can play John Company 2nd Edition for the first time, because all I hear is about how incredible it is. So looking forward to that. But all in all, some pretty successful oaths. But that brings us to the end of the show. Unfortunately, in the show, which means we are comes to the end of our chat, Bobby. But hey, man, thank you so much for joining. It's always a pleasure to chat to you. Yeah,
I should make an effort to come across the pond and come to one of your games, game days, so that actually meet you face to face.
That would be great. Awesome. What are you doing in July?
Yeah, we'd love that.
As you said that, I was thinking, okay, let me have a word with my wife before I make any.
or you could be like, I said it on the podcast, I got to go.
Yeah, it's concrete. It's set in stone now. I have to.
We can change your oath.
Well, next time I'll be divorced. Yeah.
In saying that, where can people find you? Where can they follow any designs that are going on, especially with the Anarchy coming up?
Yeah, so I mean, I've got my own website, which is www.motherloadgames.co.nz. I always lurk on BGG. Shem and Sam run a very active Discord channel. Garfield Games Discord channel, so I'm always on there as well. So yeah, you can come and poke me for any questions or want to just catch up.
Yeah, very good. So we'll pop that information into the show notes. Fellow Victorians, Joe and Dan, always a pleasure. I'm not even considering the fact that I'm overdosing on the two of you at the moment after seeing you so frequently and going to see you come Thursday.
We'll see you next week, Conor.
Yeah, exactly.
It just makes me want it more.
I know, like it's so close, But and thank you guys for listening. Thank you to our patrons and our sponsors at Advent Games. And until next time, keep playing some games. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Awesome.
Well done,
Thanks,
all
fellas.
involved.